Masech Sanhedrin Daf Chaf Het Amud Aleph, 4 lines down. The last thing we mentioned regarding relatives was sons and fathers being able to testify against each other. The Gemara says, Ashkechan Banim Badali. Now we know that first cousins can't testify against each other. Banim La'alma Minan. I don't know that regular relatives can't testify against each other, like sons. Gemara says, it's logical. Kirtan Betta says, witnesses cannot become zomim. They can't be zomim. They can't. They're ineligible to be convicted of what they were trying to convict others until they're both to be zomim. Therefore, if you want to think that sons are available, brothers yani, are able to be zomem with each other, then what will happen is if two brothers are testifying together that someone else killed somebody, and then we see that one of them they are zomem, then they'll basically be killed because of each other. And therefore, relatives can't testify. According to the reasoning, the problem is with Mishnah. So, in Masech Batra, we had a case. You need witnesses to testify that someone had a chazakah in the field, someone was using the field for 3 years, and therefore he doesn't need to bring a document that he owned it. That testimony alone is a chazakah that he owns it. So we said that there's 3 brothers, Reuben, Shimon, and Levi, each testifying in 1 year each with someone else, random guy, Shlomo. All these 3 are separate as testimonies, and they're not eligible to be zamemd. The problem is inside zamem. And sorry, it is one. It's considered one zomem. So, yani, if they're convicted, then all 4 people, the 3 brothers and that fourth person, are all have to pay the initial landowner who they're trying to make a loss. They'd have to pay him money. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, then we see brothers able to convict each other, be convicted because of each other. Rather, we say that hazama penalty comes from an outside source. We don't look at it. Oh, let's look at your partner, and therefore you plus the other guy is hurting each other, and that's not how it works with siblings. Therefore, regarding the brothers as well. Therefore, if they bring a new source that brothers, relatives can't testify together. The pasuk says banim alavot. Why didn't it say uben alavot? Inamehem alavot, or them on, or they and their fathers. Why does it mention sons? My ubanim, I feel banim alma, even relatives. Okay, ashkan krevei. Now we see that paternal relatives from the father. Mothers are mother relatives are also pasul. Markra avot rezmin says fathers twice. The first time teaches you father relatives, second time is maternal relatives. Okay, we see that you can't testify on a relative for the bad. I know that you can't testify for the benefit. He says to death twice. Why double? First time teach you for bad. Second time you can't testify on a relative even for good. By capital cases. You can't do for civil monetary cases. You have to have equal dinim. Okay. My father's brother can't testify against me, my uncle, neither he, his son, or his son-in-law. I can't testify regarding my uncle as well, not me, my son, or my son-in-law. How come a person's son-in-law can't testify against their uncle? That's a third level relative to a first level relative. Anan Shani B'Shani Tran. Our Mishnah only learned level 2 to level 2. Shani B'Shani Tran, and also level 2 to level 1. Shani B'Shani Tran. Right, so we're talking about the great uncle with the grand nephew or grand nephew in law. That's 3 generations. Level 3 relative to level 1 relative. Mishnah never mentioned that case. Gemara says, our Mishnah said son and son-in-law. It doesn't mean that same generation. Let's say Reuven's uncles. It said Reuven, the uncle can't be testified by his nephew or the son or the son-in-law. It doesn't mean the son-in-law of his brother. It means the son-in-law of his nephew, which is 3 levels. Hatan beno, his son-in-law, and therefore it will be third generation. The Gemara says V'litani ben beno. Why would you have to go through son-in-law? Just mention grandson. Your nephew's son-in-law. Just say grandson. Simply, your brother's grandson. Gemara says Mita agav urha kamashlan the baal ki ishto. Mishnah says in Hindush in general that a husband's like his wife, and therefore the same way it's his grandniece, that grandson-in-law is also this equated. We have 8 main relatives mentioned in the Mishnah that include 24 relatives, because the Mishnah mentions 8 relatives specifically: the paternal brother, uncle, maternal uncle, sister-in-law, etc. And then we added the sons and son-in-laws of each of those people. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, that you're saying that the third level relatives are included, the son-in-law of the nephew, for example, that should be 32. You're adding another 8. Shouldn't be 24 total, it should be 32. Where it says, really, no, you know what I'm talking about. It's the nephew and the son-in-law of your brother, not the grandson-in-law. So why is he called the son-in-law? So even though he's technically the same level generation, but because he's coming through marriage, he's coming from the outside, we look at it through another generation. That's the case. That's level 2, level 3. And Rav himself said level 2, level 3 is mutar. So the Mishnah doesn't make sense according to Rav. The Gemara says, Tanya says, Kishem she'aheh ha'av. Who just like my father's mother brother can't testify regarding me, my son, or my son-in-law. So to my father's brothers can't testify against me, not his son, not his son-in-law. So we see that level 3 can't testify against level 1. But regarding level 3 to level 2, the brother says pasul, Rav says mutar. So how can we equate Rav and Rabbi Azar? The verse says Rav savar Rav holds like him in one aspect and argues against him in the other. He holds that it's a third level is pasul, but level 2 to level 3 is mutar. I forgot to mention earlier, today's daf is sponsored by Anonymous in Le'ilun Ishmat Elazar ben Tana. My time with Rav, what's Rav's source? Right? It says the father, he's playing the words in the pasuk. This is the father should not put death because of the sons and sons on the father, but he puts a pause after that second and sons. The rabot dorahir, that includes an extra generation, sons and sons. The Lazar says no. Al banim it's teaching you the sons. That and sons is not period. It's and sons on the father. Pislu the same isur, father to son, and son to father. Okay, Mara Nachman. My mother-in-law's brother can't testify against me. My mother-in-law's brother's son can't testify against me. And also my mother-in-law's sister's son can't testify against me. The Mishnah also says, Maravashi. We asked him, what about my father-in-law's brother? Ben Ahi Hamid Mahu, what about my father-in-law brother's son? Ben Ahot Hamid Mahu, what about my father-in-law's sister's son? Amarlan, he told us, 22 of Mishnah says, Achi Achi Aviv, Achi Immo, Hen Ubnehen, Vahatnehen. But Mishnah says specifically that. Rav says, Rav Ikla Mizban, one time Rav went to buy paper. When they asked him, can a guy testify on his stepson's wife? And he answered them, we said a husband's like his wife. And a wife's like her husband. They're the same, therefore they're asur. A wife's like her husband, because the pasuk says, don't live with your father's your father's brother, don't approach his wife because she's your aunt. But that's not true. It's your uncle's wife. So why did it say that? To teach you? It's like your wife is like your husband, therefore she'll consider your aunt. The Mishnah said mother's husband, his son, and his son-in-law. Where it says your mother's husband's son is your brother. Gemara says no. It's not the case where it's the brother's brother, which means the wife had a child, remarried with the husband, had another child with him, but the husband had a previous son. So those three are all considered related. The wife's first child from the first marriage, the wife's second child of the new marriage, and the husband's previous son with the previous marriage as well. 3 different children, 3 different situations going on there. Rav Chisda says mutar. I'm going to tell them, you don't hold like a Birmia's halacha. By the way, we told them, no, I didn't hear of it. Really meaning I don't hold of it. So how does he explain the Mishnah? Mishnah is teaching you 2 cases of brother from the father, brother from the mother. The father, the groom, and the father, the bride can testify against each other. They can testify against each other. They're not. They just have a small relationship with each other. They're not considered relatives, even though their children are married. Amar Babarahna. A person can testify against his arusa wife, right? So in the right, in the according to halacha, they used to have the arus period was a year. She's considered married, but she can't live with anybody else. But they can't live together either. And nowadays we do it right before in the chuppah, right before the kiddushin, the nisuin rather. So he says that a person can testify against his arusa. That only implies that you can testify against her is when you're trying to take money away from her, but you can't testify to give to her because you're biased. The Gemara says, "Allahi, the Gemara says differentiates. No, you can never testify whether it's good or bad for her. Why? That why would you think it's allowed? Because a wife that's in your arusa, if he were to pass away, if she would pass away, he's not an onen, he can't become to for he's a kohen. Bechen, he also vice versa. Lo onenet, she's not considered an onenet. If she's a kohenet, she can't become to for meta. In your chef, she dies, he doesn't inherit her. Metu govem, but if he dies, she calls the ketubah. We see that they're not really married. So therefore, we would think that maybe he could testify against her. Mar says, the reason why that's not a good comparison is because in regarding to inheritance and tum'ah, kehuna, you have to be considered a close relative. And they're not close yet. I could let you but in regarding to testimony, the reason why you can't testify against someone is because of biasness. And over here, and the arus is considered close, and therefore you can't testify. The Mishnah said a stepson. The stepson can't testify. Rabbi Yosef saw his brother-in-law. Only his brother-in-law. Bida says the stepson. Like Gemara says, "My kamar, what is flying over here?" If you want to explain the Mishnah, stepson's pasul, and also your brother-in-law. But I said, both pasul. But the Mishnah that said brother-in-law, son, and son-in-law, Mani who's according to the Rabbi doesn't feel like according to either of them because they both hold that brother-in-law is pasul. But the Mishnah is saying as follows: Bida says stepson pasul, but brother-in-law, son, and son-in-law are mutar. Brother-in-law is pasul, but his stepson, son, and son-in-law are all mutar. But then Rabbi Chia says 8 main categories of relatives, like we mentioned earlier, which equal to 24. What we're just saying over here, who's this according to? She didn't follow according to either of them because they both say that only one of them should be technically not 8 principles, it should be 7 principles because one of them hold either son-in-law or brother-in-law don't count. Brother-in-law or stepson don't count. The Gemara says, Bidan says stepson's pasul, brother-in-law, he and his son-in-law are pasul. It says that no, the brother-in-law is pasul, but the son-in-law is also pasul. Matin Rabida, the Rabbi Mishnah follows according to Rabbi, the Breita holds like Rabbi Yosef. Okay, according to Rabbi Yosef. We'll explain what exactly does that mean, which part. So now Gemara says, there was a certain gift document that 2 brothers-in-laws, the husbands of 2 sisters, signed as witnesses. So maybe it said that brother-in-laws are pasul or not pasul. Maybe she can't. So who says that Shmuel said that it's referring to the Mishnah that said that brother-in-laws are mutar? Maybe the Shmuel is holding to Rabbi Yosef in the Braita, which is brother-in-law's pasul. Don't think that. Shmuel says, me and Pinechas were brothers and brothers-in-laws, because the brothers-in-laws through marrying sisters. General brothers-in-laws are mutar. Maybe he's saying because me and Pinechas, because we're brothers-in-laws, because they're also brothers. So maybe that's why. Oh, only reason why the pasul because the brothers because they're brothers. But had they not been brothers, it would been mutar. Malay said, "Zil misira." Okay, fine. Brothers not pasul. Fine. He says it tells the recipient of this gift document, go acquire it because documents NG. Go acquire it through witnesses that testify that the giving over is validated. He says because sorry, but Elazar holds that you can hand it over in front of witnesses. That's good enough instead of document, but that only applies when the document's not flawed. Over here, the document's messed up because the brother-in-law signed it. Okay, Amalei just said, sorry, they don't let me give this gift to you. You have to make a new document. Maybe that says He said that if the daughter-in-law dies, the daughter dies, and the son-in-law had children, they're still connected. Amar Rabbi Hamon Rabbi Rav. Halakha Rabbi Dala Halakha Zakon Rabbi Da. Rav Amar Nachman in Halakha Rabbi Da. In the Halakha like him. V'chen Amar Rabbi Chana Rabbi Chana in Halakha Rabbi Da. Ikdemat Ibn Hadar Rabbi Chana aha. It's the third file. Ma et zu derash Rabbi Yasser the following recently taught. Uvata el Kohanim halvim bet shvet asher yeh b'yamim hem. Pasuk says you shall go to the Kohanim, Levim, and the judge who will be in those days. What does that mean? Is it possible to go to a judge that's not during your time? What does that mean? Where it says he's refers to a judge who was originally a relative, and then they became not related anymore because of death. And therefore it's teaching you to teach you that if a person is no longer considered a relative, he's mutar. The sons of Mar Ukva's father-in-law, would they be relatives that became not related anymore when their sister, which is Mar Ukva's wife, passed away. They came for him for judgment. I'm disqualified. I can't judge you. Why? Because Rabbi we'll bring a letter from Chachamim and Eretz Israel. We told him, he said, no, I'm not related to you because of my sister. When I married your sister, he compared it like glue to the wax. When I said that I'm not judging you because I'm pasul to judge you, I'm not literally pasul. Rather, I don't think you're obey my decision because you don't treat me as your superior. Or Mishnah said that a friend is like the groomsman who takes care of the wedding and the parties. How long was he pasul for? The 7 days of they say, once the wedding's over, they can testify. Enemy said 3 days. Then on where we know the enemy from, they cannot be his enemy. It teaches you, if he's not an enemy, he can testify. But when it says that he should not look out for someone else's misfortune, that means he didn't know he can judge him. I can prove from an enemy that you can testify. That you can't testify because of a friend. Because you could read a play on the words in the pasuk. If you read it quickly, it sounds like not a friend either. Then you can testify. You can't seek out his misfortune, not his benefit. You can judge him. Media active, but the Gemara doesn't like that. Does it say friend? No, it doesn't say friend. So where's your source of friend? The Gemara says that's far logical. Or had my time. Why can't you have a my time? Why can't you have an enemy testify? Because he doesn't like him. Therefore, he's biased. Or have but a friend as well is the opposite extreme. He's biased because they're close. That's why pasul. What do we do with the pasuk of neither his enemy nor did not seek anything against him? One teaches you that you can't be a judge for your enemy. The other one teaches you as follows for the Braita. To teach you if two Chachamim do not like each other, they shouldn't judge together because they won't find common ground. They'll always look against what the other person's saying, and therefore that's not fit for judgment.